All right. Ben Simmons. There's a lot there. All right, I'll give you a brief recap. If you're not a sports fan, you might not know who he is, why I'm talking about him. Real brief. Professional basketball player. Used to play for the 76ers, Philadelphia. In a playoff game, he was terrible. Just god-awful. And afterwards, he kind of disappeared, kind of malfunctioned. You can make the argument that he was malfunctioning in the game, actually, and that's kind of spilled over afterwards. Team couldn't get in touch with him. His money started being impacted. At least it was threatened to be impacted negatively. And so then mental health started to come up. Now, it seems convenient, but maybe there was really mental health problems going on. Pretty much he refused to play for that team anymore, demanded a trade. Eventually, after a while, did get traded to the Brooklyn Nets, where he still did not play. And they recited having some back issues. And so they're out of the playoffs now at this point in time. And now it's being reported that he had some sort of mental block that caused the back pain. And that's kind of where we're at. Talking about it because it's a mental health issue, but there's all kinds of stuff in there. You know, there's him being young, there's professionalism issue, there's a toxic work environment, there's the media. And as always, in social media, when people are debating, they kind of mix a bunch of things together because we have no concept of nuance anymore. And then we just make a bunch of blanketed statements. So I'm going to kind of break it down real quickly as best I can. So I can really focus on the mental health piece. I guess we'll start with the professionalism part because that to me, I think, is the most obvious that where Ben Simmons is wrong. All right. So I would say it's obvious. Now with contracts, you know, my business is based all off of contracts and all. And, you know, however many people agree to do certain things, you sign the contract, and then you're all taken from the pot of money, right? But if one person doesn't do what they're supposed to do, it impacts everyone poorly. And that's kind of what Ben Simmons is doing. Regardless of the reason, he just walked away. So that's a problem, right? Now, it's a problem just on principle because you can't just... I mean, you tried telling your employer that... or even if someone you're just a business partner with, that you're going to take some time off, but you're still going to get this money from the pot, right? But you're not going to do no work for it. That's a problem, just on principle. But also... and a dollar amount is the issue with them because they're trying to improve their team and they can't if they have a bunch of money wrapped up in a player who ain't even playing. All right, so there's a professionalism piece of this, and it's tough, man, because I've had my own mental health issues, and when I was younger, I'm sure that I know that I've definitely caused some issues with some people because I just wasn't being professional, I wasn't being reliable, and I was just young and I didn't know how to deal with what I was going through. So some of that could be at play here for sure with Ben Simmons, which leads me to the part of him being young. I think he's about 25. Now, personally, I think that 25 years old is old enough, especially with a team around him, to be more professional than he's been. But that's me. You know, it's relative. People mature at different rates. Perhaps this is a big learning experience for him in his life. I think I just heard someone recently say, they were talking about Johnny Depp. And they were saying how Johnny Depp was rich and famous in his early 20s. And how that's like figuratively a death sentence for someone like that. Young, and you're rich and famous already with all this access to all these harmful vices, we'll say. In Ben Simmons' case, being young, rich, famous, and dealing with all this mental stuff, all this pressure, and just short-circuiting, not knowing what to do, is an issue. And I can have sympathy there. So there's that piece. And then there's this whole, like with basketball and just sports in general, but like a toxic industry environment, I would say. There are people who have directly said or insinuated that Ben Simmons is weak. And I wouldn't call anyone who makes it in the level of professional sports that he has weak at all. I mean, it's real hard, no matter how good you are, to make it to that level. And that takes a lot of strength to do. You also have to consider that Ben Simmons hasn't, it was just recently where he had these issues. So whatever he's going through, he's had to deal with that up to this point and hasn't had any issues like this yet until now, so that's also some strength. So I wouldn't call the man weak at all, anyone like that. I mean, but at the same time, the culture does, it promotes, what should I call it? It kind of promotes, look, you this kind of mentality of everything you do has got to be for the team. You just got to pick yourself up from your bootstraps and just keep going, no matter what's going on with you. It's almost like a military mindset. But in the military, you're training for warfare. This is just a game, and you got a lot of young, you could call them kids even, having this mentality kind of thrust upon them. And so they pick that up. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it because it got them to that place, right? But it comes with a cost. And sometimes there are things that they really need to deal with that they just don't know how to deal with, or they don't deal with it. They just keep going. They've been taught to just keep going and keep going and keep going. And when it comes to mental health, there's a problem. Because after a while, all those issues build up, and you don't even realize that they've built up because you've just been constantly going. So there's that piece, just how his environment is just toxic. Then there's the media piece, right, where the media is not always helpful. And it is their job to, I think Kyrie Irving mentioned this, and that's a whole other story, which I won't get to right now, that the media builds narratives. This is true. That doesn't mean that the narrative is a false one. It could be the truth. It could be half-truths. It could be a version of the truth. But the point here is there's been such a lack of transparency with Ben Simmons that the media is just doing their job and creating a narrative. And the less facts that you put out there that he's putting, the facts that he hasn't put out there is going to cause the media just to kind of build their own narrative and run with it. I'm not saying it's fair. It's not. But it is what it is. I'm not even saying that he owes the organization or the fans any type of private mental health information. That's up to him. But if he doesn't bring it forward, then the nature of the beast is they're just going to run with a narrative. And it's not always uninformed. I'm sure they're talking to teammates, they're talking to executives, they're talking to people around. So there's some truth to it. But that's just how it is, right? So there's the media piece as well, which doesn't always help. And then there's the mental health piece. And right, all these other pieces that we've kind of put together and just kind of judging it all together, and we can't really do that. You have to pick it apart, right? There's the mental health piece where I talked about you keep going, that mentality, which can be toxic. If Ben Simmons, let's say, had a broken leg, and let's say this whole scenario happened with him having a broken leg, and you see him trying to come back. We see all these videos of him trying to come back. We would think that he's crazy, right? If he's practicing on crutches or something like that, we'd be like, what are you doing, dude? Just sit down and let yourself heal and then come back when you're healthy. We would think that he's crazy. And even if he said, well, I don't want to deal with the medical staff at Philly, trade me somewhere with a different medical staff. Okay, and he gets traded, fine. And now he's still trying to come back now and telling everybody on crutches, I'm ready to play, y'all. I'm ready to play. And he's dribbling with his crutches. We would think he's lost his mind. Dude, sit down, get better, then come back. But he didn't do that, right? For whatever reason. Maybe he's afraid to, or perhaps he's gotten bad advice, whatever the situation. But the point is that it's not just that environment. A lot of our environments don't promote enough self-care for mental health. And as a result, we just keep going. right? And we really need to treat it as we would treat a physical problem. Like we would treat a broken arm or anything like that. You're not going to use the broken arm. You're going to wait until it heals. You're going to make sure it heals properly and then get back to work. Back to work using it, So I would encourage you all, as I always do, to treat it with that type of seriousness. It is exactly like that. Because if you don't, you'll end up like Ben Simmons, where you're just a mess. You're a mess, and now you gotten to the point you don't know what to do. The walls are caving in on you, and there's all these other issues that are now part of that problem. And I can't even imagine for him being a celebrity as well. It must be real tough. And I'm not saying this with all sympathy, because I said there's other pieces out there where are absolutely his fault. I'm just talking about the mental health piece now. There are people who believe that he's faking it. I'm not speaking to that. I don't know. But even if he's faking it, that would be a mental health issue. You know what I'm saying? So regardless, there's things that he just needs to stop and take care of.